goes a little something like.
Hello Literates, I'm Britt Ryderly and welcome back to Writer's Ambition. For those of you who've been hanging in since episode 1, you're a real one. And those of you who are just finding my humble channel, welcome. We hope you stay a while. Okay, so yes, I'm in my pajamas. Listen, I'm not gonna pretend it's not 4 in the morning where I am. It very much is. And this is just what it is. Like, I don't wear glamorous PJs. I wear flannel pants, old t-shirts, and a comfy little robe. Find someone else to bully. So I'm so excited because this is going to be my first book talk. So I racked my brain about how to do a book review and how to structure it, world building, characters, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just not the reviewer type in that way. I kind of rate books on the sort of conversations that they open up. And so I want to have my first book talk be about a book that I mentioned in my Black BookTuber Tag. And it's called Stone, Her Ruthless Enforcer by Theodora Taylor. So, the Theodora Taylor's a boss. So there's a lot of characters in here, but we're only going to talk about Stone and Naima, the two main characters. So let's just get into it because I have a lot to say and who knows how long this video is going to be really. So let's just get into it. I gave it 5 stars. Debate your aunt. I gave it 5 stars, as I give most of Theodora Taylor's books, and that's just what it is. So, I'm just gonna go through my little script in the hopes that I don't completely become derailed, because I could talk about this book for hours, and that's not the plan for tonight. So, adventure time. Okay, 5-star rating. Let's just start with character development. Theodora Taylor's character development is unique, clear, direct, and seamless to the point of subtlety. Let's start with Naima. She's Afro-Latina. So her mom is Haitian, her dad's Dominican. And her parents are so cute. Like, they're so cute. But I'm staying on track. Okay. Naima is a social worker who's moved from New York to North Carolina to get away from her dead ex-boyfriend's crime family. She's too nice, but with a secret baby on the way, she's pledged to put too nice Naima in a box to protect her unborn child from its father's mob influence. So, that's just my little glossing of Naima's character. It's pretty much like that's Naima in 3 sentences, really. Naima is consistent, her character, the entire time, and she finds her way through her emotional arc of the book through her fatal flaw, which is very Naima. She's a social worker, right? So she is always going to want to case file the situation. She even case files herself. And so she's always going to try to work on how to resolve a situation, not how to avoid it and back out of it. So true to form, she does that, right? Like her fatal flaw is too nice Naima. She's an empath. She always wants to go out of her way and give her last to help everyone around her. I love the opportunity to talk about the way that as an empath, there are risks. Like, when you pour so much of your energy into other people, you could get your feelings hurt, and not because people shoot you down or anything, but because you invest so much time, energy, labor into people. And sometimes they just up and leave. And that's what happens to Naima. Her best friend just sort of leaves after they have this big fight. Her parents move back to Hispaniola after she has spent a lot of her 20s taking care of them. And her parents are visually impaired. So she spent a lot of time and energy staying and taking care of them. And all of a sudden they just leave. And she's like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, bye. And it really hurts her, the way they just sort of pop out. Her boyfriend, Rock, who ends up dying the very next day, but he dumps her before he dies. And so a lot of people are very important to her, deuce out that she spent a lot of energy on, and that leaves scars. And we open the book with those sort of emotional scars that she has. The thing about her with her character is it's so Naima for her to follow her own emotional arc by working through her fatal flaw. She has to learn how to deal with the hurt she sustained from being an empath and learn to use that as her strength to confront Stone and help him become the man that she deserves. And she deserves who Stone is when he's doing the work. She really, really does. And Stone is amazing. So let's talk about Stone. Stone is an enforcer for the New York mob. He is. So, also, he's the twin brother of Rock, her ex-boyfriend and baby daddy, who is now dead. This is Theodora Taylor. This is what she does to you. So, he's an enforcer for the New York mob. He's her dead ex's twin. He shows up on her doorstep to find her 9 months pregnant and is immediately like, if that is Rock's baby, we're getting married. I cannot make this up. So, obviously Naima's like, freak no, but let's not deal with that. Because I don't want to get too much into the plot because I want y'all to read the book. I just want to have a conversation about trauma. So he's like, if that's Rock's baby, we're getting married. And obviously she's like, you're crazy. But it's very hard to get away from Stone. She left New York before she was showing so nobody would know and she wouldn't have to deal with this, because Stone has been an enforcer for the Ferraro family since he's been working for them since he was a teenager. He's been an enforcer for them about since his like late teens, early 20s. He's very good at his job. So like, she goes into her house, locks him out. He's sitting at her kitchen table the next day with a marriage license. Like, that's just what it is. So she says no over and over again, but eventually they get married because he blackmails her. Let's put that to the side, read the book. The point is, the way that Stone enters the book is very, very indicative of who he is as a character. Him seeing her pregnant and being like, if that's my brother's baby, we're getting married. That's who Stone is. He reminds me of Frankenstein in the way that like, Frankenstein is told he's a monster and that he doesn't belong, so he spends the book observing people who do belong and trying to figure out how to integrate into that life. Stone has been told since he was a child that he has anger management issues, that he is a monster, and that being an enforcer is what he should do, so that's what he does. And so after 20 plus years of being told you're a monster who can't control yourself and all you can really do for a living is kill, he believes it, right? Like, he believes it. And it hampers his emotional development. Additionally, his brother, Rock, gave him prescription pills to manage his anger when he was 13 or 14. He's been on them since, and he's like in his mid to late 30s in the book. So he's been on these pills for about 2 decades. And they're a lot of pills. And it's like antidepressants and antipsychotics. So that is why he has a limited emotional spectrum, because you are suppressing your entire psyche right now. And that's part of, and we'll just like dip right in. Well, first, actually, so that's who Stone is, right? Like, this is who Stone is. He's trying to connect. He has trouble doing so. He has trouble doing so because he's on a lot of prescription pills that were not prescribed to him. So let's talk about real quick world building. Theodora Taylor is a freaking fantastic world builder, period. Even though she writes so many couples across so many series, and she is quite prolific, none of her couples could be switched out for anyone else. Stone could not be with Prin, who is a female love interest in another of Theodora Taylor's books. Stone and Prin could not be together. Even if they crossed paths, I'm like, they wouldn't even look at each other. And I'm very sure of that. But that's how good her character development is, that you can sort of play out how her characters across books would interact and know who would talk to each other and who would not. But even if they did speak to each other, I don't see why they would. They would not. They would not end up together at all. Like, their conversation would be purely functional, whatever they need to do to get it done, and it would go their own way. She's and that is character development, but it's also how good her worlds are. Very, very lush. Every character has an entire world, even though it's not a fantasy. Like, every world is based off of that character and their choices, and it makes each world feel completely unique. So that is one of my favorite things, is how much her worlds contribute to the character development. Because in this world that we are in Stone the Ruthless Enforcer, Stone has to be with Naima. He would never be with Prin. He would never be with Amber. He would never be with any of the other MCs. It has to be Naima because she helps him complete his arc. He's not going to be Stone without her, like, or he is going to be Stone. He's not going to be the Stone that we end the book with. He's definitely not going to be the Stone that says my favorite lines of the book. So that gets into who Stone is with Naima, gets me into my favorite lines, and we'll use this to talk about how I appreciate Theodora's representation of the dynamism of trauma, and then we'll peace out. So we'll talk about my favorite scenes through the favorite lines and how trauma shows up there. Yes. Okay. So I have two favorite lines. One is an LOL line and one is a heart-wrenching line. The LOL line is when Naima and Stone are in therapy together. So one of the reasons I love the representation of trauma so much is that it like Theodora Taylor shows us how dynamic it is. So both Stone and Naima show how trauma shows up in ways that are remarkable but not spectacular. Stone has all these pills, right? And we don't find the pills until 40% of the way through the book. So for the first 40%, we're just like, bro, what is wrong with you? It's not spectacular. He's very quiet. He's very reserved. And that's what it comes off as. Quiet, reserved, unattached. Like, and then we find out he's on pills. But there's nothing spectacular about his behavior. There's no spectacle. It is remarkable the way he behaves, but it's not spectacular. And when Naima is like, freak this, I'm opening a case file, right? Like, empathic powers activate. When she does that and stands up to him and finds the pills, that's what she was like, powers activate because you're in the house with my child and that's period. Like, no. She faces him down and she's like, Garnet, her baby, deserves a better father than this. And that's what you said you came back for. That's why you blackmailed me into marrying you. So what's up? They have this scene and it, again, is remarkable but not spectacular. It's a fight. It's a fight. Like, nothing gets thrown. No one gets called out their name. That no one is in danger of physical violence. It's a fight. And Stone sleeps in the spare room that night. That's what happens. And I love how just like real that is. Like, every fight is not to be knocked down, drag out, even if we're talking about very, very consequential things, and they are. And so after that, Stone ends up going to therapy. Here's how Naima ends up in therapy. He goes to therapy. His psychiatrist does not put him back on any pills. Well, he has a therapist and a psychiatrist that are working together. His psychiatrist is like, no more pills. And his therapist is like talking to him, helping him to like unpack all the trauma that he's gone through because his father was very, very abusive. And even though obviously he's not, so I'm an enforcer for the mob, because then his therapist would have to report him to the police. He does find a way to talk about like the different traumas that he has experienced and continues to experience in his daily life. So all of that is helping him to become more emotive. Christmas comes around. It's rolling up on a year since Stone showed up, and maybe 6 months, I guess, since they've been married. Christmas comes, Naima's huge family comes over to her house and they're dancing. Stone says, so I think I'm like 40% in love with you. Naima loses it. Not spectacularly, very quietly in her mind, just begins to like lose her Snapple a little bit, because this gets into Naima's hurt. Also, not spectacular, but quite remarkable. And it goes back to the fact that like being an empath has risks, right? You invest in people, they leave in certain ways that really, really hurt you, and especially if several people do it at the same dang time. And that's what happened. And so even though she case filed him, even though she used her empathic powers to help Stone, she still is sort of like pulled back and wary of the risks because she's starting to like Stone too. And in her mind, when people say I love you, that precipitates them leaving. And so even though she's beginning to care for Stone, she does not want him to be in love with her because she's like, this is crazy. You appeared out of nowhere saying that like you were gonna marry me if I had your dead brother's baby. Like you were under the influence of literal drugs when you said that. And so she's sort of waiting for him any day now to realize that this is craziness and to leave her. And so when he says, I'm 40% of the way in love with you, she thinks that this is the start of that and begins pushing him away. Stone has his therapist call Naima into therapy, and so that they can have a supervised conversation, because Stone is very much like an enforcer. Like Naima is a social worker and she's trained to say things carefully and eloquently and like all of these things, right? To use the correct terms. Stone is not, and he has no interest in doing so. And so his therapist is like, I think that we should have this conversation together so that everything that needs to be said can get said and I can step in if there's a need. So Stone is like, why are you trying to push me away after all this work that I've been doing, after how our relationship is growing? Yes, it started off as a relationship of convenience. It's not that anymore. I'm 90% in love with you, and you tell me, which she did, to go have sex with other women because I may not actually love you and I may just think that the sex is really bomb. What the heck? And this is my favorite line. So he confronts her. He says all this stuff and he's like, it's real simple. Do you want to be in this marriage or not? Do you want a divorce? And she's like, you're going to divorce me? He says, no, I'm Catholic Italian mob. You have no chance of getting out of this marriage. But let's say I had a brain aneurysm or something and was like, sure, little birdie, be free or whatever. I screamed. Sure, little birdie, be free or whatever. Completely stone. Completely stone. That's my favorite. That's my LOL favorite line. And that scene is one of my favorites because it just shows, like, even though their hurts are wildly different, they're on the complete different end of the spectrum. His is physical and psychological abuse, and she has scars from relationships that didn't end well, right? They're on the complete different end of the spectrum. But here's the thing, and here's what Stone and Naima show us. When we have hurts, and we all do, these scars and these emotional bruises, we learn how to position ourselves to protect them. And that posture that we strike up sometimes hobbles us, right? It inhibits our ability to engage with the world in the way that would bring us the greatest actualization. And if we want to get to that actualization, again, as Stone and Naima show us, you got to confront it, and you got to confront it consistently, and they do. And that takes me to my last favorite line, and the last thing that we'll talk about before we peace out, and that is the confrontation that Stone and Naima have at the end of the book, where Naima is like, I love you, right? And like they've worked through it all this time. They love each other. They're 100% in love. Just so cute. They're 100% in love. But Stone does something that I'm not going to tell you about. He believes he's acting in their best interest. He does a thing, and Naima is like, I love myself too, and I actually love myself more than you. Oh my gosh. Now that's not the line. And she doesn't say it in that way, but I was like, oh, sip to Naima, please. Oh, and what is so powerful to me about this scene is her saying, like, we have come to a place where we are fine and comfortable saying that we love each other, and that's great. And as an empath, I've always given too much to other people and then been butthurt and bone hurt when it goes sideways. But I have to love myself first, and I do. And the way you broke this trust is unconscionable to me. I set a boundary, you crossed it. There's gonna be a consequence, and the consequence might be that I need to leave this relationship. Scared the crap out of me. Scared the crap. 5 minutes left in the book and she does this. These authors don't care about me. But anyway, even though my heart was breaking, I was also very, very proud of Naima for saying that, which is like, sometimes the people that help you deal with your trauma and emotional pain are not the ones who are going to go with you further beyond that. Now, Stone is, it's a happily ever after. That's just what it is. It's not a spoiler. It's just so in the book. But the fact that Naima was willing to do that, I think is an important conversation too, about just like all of our emotional arcs, as it were. And Naima proves herself willing to let Stone go if it's for her own personal good. And I love that. And my favorite line from this scene is Stone's in reaction to her saying, like, I will leave you. And this is honestly the most that Stone has ever said about their relationship this entire book, and it's hilarious and heart-wrenching. But here is the line. Then he goes on this entire monologue and says, this thing between us was binding from the start. Y'all, give us a line. Give us the line at the end of the book. This thing between us, it was binding from the start. He says a lot more after that, and it's great. But that is my favorite line of the entire book, because I'm a romantic and that's just what it is. Like, that's simply what it is. But I just want to leave y'all with a wrap up of everything that I've said. And to clarify a few things. Nothing is wrong with... I do see something wrong with spectacle. I don't see anything wrong with the way that people express themselves, right? So even though I'm like, yeah, like their fight was not dramatic and no one threw any punches, no one called anyone out their name, no one had a panic attack, right? Those things happen. My issue is when they appear so much and with so little nuance in books that it seems to become like porno tropey. And sometimes trauma really does breed quiet and secrecy. It's not always loud. I think Theodora Taylor captures that so beautifully. The remarkable quiet of tragedy and pain, and the way through that being expression, absolutely, but the expression being dynamic and revelatory and salvific in ways that do not depend on one mode of engagement, but that depend upon a consistent confrontation and willingness to move through. And I'm so grateful to Stone, her Ruthless Enforcer, for giving me something that I absolutely realized that I was missing in a lot of other romance books. And I super recommend it to you. If you've read it, let me know in the comments. If you have made it this far in the book talk, comment below, what shall we say? Comment below remarkable, or not remarkable but not spectacular. So yeah, okay, this is the first of hopefully many book talks, and until next time, keep reading.